rest. Like how do you, how do people relax their body? And most people that I talk to, sometimes I'll ask them like, oh, like, do you have like a meditation practice, or do you have, what do you do when you feel stressed out? And most people say, I don't do anything. I don't do anything. I don't meditate, or maybe they say like, oh, well, I've meditated. I try to meditate, but I can't get my mind to quiet down. Like I try, but I can't get my thoughts to stop. So I don't think meditation's not for me. It doesn't work for me. Like these are typically the responses that I get from people. And one thing that, let me put on gallery so I can see you guys. One thing that is important is that we learn how to relax our nervous system, because essentially when our body needs to heal, our body has to be in this like rest, like this rest phase. So when we're anxious or if we're nervous, then we all know that feeling of when we're kind of like overwhelmed, and then we feel our heart is racing a little bit more. We're kind of nervous. It's hard to focus because we're kind of like really like our heart is racing and everything's kind of like flared up. Well, when your body is in that phase, that is called like our fight or flight phase. That's our sympathetic system. Our nervous system is getting revved up. So when your body is in that state, it can't heal itself because your blood flow is going to essentially the organs that help you, run from a bear essentially, or like run from harm. So your blood flow and the way your body heals is not as efficient as it needs to be, because there's this perceived threat that's happening. Our brains have not evolved that far past, where we're trying to survive, so our brain is constantly scanning for threats. So it's like we're always kind of thinking about all the things that are going wrong. Like we're constantly scanning for threats. Now, most of us are not worried about food and shelter and clothing. Like we have our basic needs met, but we'll usually notice we're still anxious a lot. We're still stressed. We're thinking about things and we're anxious, even though there's nothing really life-threatening going on around us. For most, 99.9% of the time, we're not really in a state of mind where we actually need to be running. The thing is, our body heals itself when we're in that rest phase. And this is part of why like sleep is so important, because sleep is the one thing where you're out of your thoughts. And when you get into that deep sleep phase, that's when your body really heals itself. Now, also a lot of people have difficulty sleeping because they're anxious, right? So it's important that we learn how to calm down our nervous system when we're awake. And during the day, do we know how to bring our body into this rest kind of relax mood? One, it allows us to feel peaceful and feel calm, but it also allows us for our body to heal itself. Now my body can put its energy towards healing my shoulder pain. Now my body can put its energy towards healing my back pain or my hip pain or my knee pain or whatever it is that, maybe I'm getting a massage or I'm going to physical therapy. But if I leave that and then I'm just kind of anxious all day, well, it's hard for my body to actually heal this injury. So, this is how I started kind of reversing, like with patients. Okay, like let's teach you how to regulate your nervous system, how to calm down your system so that so your body can heal itself. And what I've realized is that most people don't know how to calm themselves down. We're kind of always low grade anxious all day, right? Like a lot of us, we wake up and before you even get out of bed, you're kind of like, your brain starts going and you're rehearsing everything that's going to happen that day, even though your feet haven't even touched the ground. But yet we're like, thinking about all the things that need to happen, the meeting that's going to happen, the chores that need to be done, the things that need to be done. Like your brain will start going once you let it, So part of what I wanted to do is teach us some really simple, practical techniques to get out of our thoughts, because our thoughts never stop, right? It's important that we understand, like It's not about, oh, I can't get my thoughts to stop. I can't get out of my head. I'm anxious because there's just so much going on in my head. They'll never stop. It's how to transcend our thoughts. How do we get to a place where we pull ourselves out of thoughts? Oh, okay, I unmuted myself. I think that was somebody saying, we don't want to hear this. I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. It's okay, we're gonna work on those thoughts. So one thing I want to teach us is how to, kind of like how to scan our own energy in our body. This is a very easy way for us to pull ourselves out of our thoughts, but it's important for us to understand what's going on in our body anyways. And most of us don't. Like, we don't normally think about internally what's going on because we're just always thinking about what I need to do or what happened before or whatever it is that's going on. The thoughts, they'll just always create stories. It doesn't matter. But more important is, how do we pull ourselves out of it? So one thing that I wanted to quickly go over was just kind of a body scan. So be patient with this because it'll take like maybe 5 to 7 minutes for us to kind of go through it. So just kind of like allow yourself some minutes now to just really focus on yourself. And during this process, you may not, because I'm going to guide us through certain parts of our body, and I want you to try to just focus and feel feel what's happening in your body. And if we get to areas and you can't feel anything, that's okay. Don't your thoughts, sometimes we'll be like, oh, this is stupid, I can't feel anything. That's okay. Just when you notice you're thinking about that, just try to come back and focus again. In some areas you'll be able to feel easily, and some areas will feel very, very difficult, and it doesn't matter. It's just, we're just trying to bring some awareness into our body. So don't take this activity too seriously. It's not that important if you do feel certain areas and you don't feel other areas. I think the key is just going to be to just try and like allow yourself the next 5 minutes or so to just really be quiet and like focus on yourself. And try and, ideally I'm gonna have us do it with your eyes closed. So I don't know where all of you guys are sitting. So hopefully you're sitting in a place where you don't have a lot of distractions around you. Okay. So let's just get started. So the first thing I'm gonna have us do is, first, let's just take 1 or 2 breaths, just some slow breaths. It doesn't have to be anything deep, anything amazing, but just to kind of focus on the air as you breathe in, the air coming into your lungs, and as you exhale, the air coming out of your lungs. So let's just do that 2 or 3 times. And just kind of follow your breath, just to kind of bring our attention into our body. And then I'll have you close your eyes. And if you can, just sit with your hands palm up on your lap or, wherever. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to have us do is focus on your hands. So without moving your fingers, how do you know your hands are there? So essentially you're trying to feel, can you feel the energy in your hands? And sometimes you'll feel like maybe a tingling sensation in your hands, or a warmth, or any kind of sensation. It doesn't matter what it is. But essentially, with your eyes closed, how do you know that your hands exist? We're just going to sit here for a bit and just just try. And if you feel like you can't feel it, that's okay. Just keep trying. And then some of you may be able to feel some kind of sensation in your hand. And then from there, hold on to that a little bit if you can. And then try to feel your feet. So this is going to feel maybe a little bit harder because your feet are farther away from you, and that's okay. Essentially, it's the same thing. Without moving your toes, without moving your feet, how do you know your feet are there? Can you feel any warmth or tingling in your feet, any kind of sensation in your feet that allow you to know that your feet are where they are without you looking? And this one's a little bit harder, so everyone may not feel that, and that's okay. But just try, see if you can feel any kind of sensation where your feet are. And then from there, we're going to go back to our hands to see if you can feel that energy in your hands. And then see if you can feel any kind of sensation through your forearm and your upper arms. Any kind of sensation. And it's going to feel harder. Like if you can feel some energy in your hands, you may notice it's a little harder to feel it in your arms, and that's okay. I'm just looking for anything, any kind of sensation. And then try to hold on to that a little bit if you can feel it. Let's go back to our feet. See if you can feel some energy, some warmth, maybe some tingling, anything in your feet. And then see if you can feel it in your lower legs and your thighs as well. So your whole legs. Great. And now we're going to try to scan through our whole torso. So essentially, we're going to start at the base. Let's start at our pelvis. And you want to try to see if you can feel any kind of sensation deep in your pelvis, any kind of warmth or any kind of sensation, tingling, coolness, it doesn't matter. And then we'll go a little bit higher. So go just under your belly button. And just kind of focus there. See if you can feel any sensation in that area. And then go a little bit higher, above your belly button, underneath your rib cage. See if you can feel any sensation without touching or looking. Do you feel any kind of sensation in that area of your body? Maybe it feels like just some kind of energy, some kind of warmth, tingling, coolness, anything. Great. And then we'll go a little bit higher into our chest area, kind of our heart center. See if you can feel any sensation there. And then from there, go a little bit higher into your throat. See if you feel any kind of sensation in your throat area, any warmth, any tingling, coolness. And then we'll go a little bit higher in our forehead, between our eyebrows. See if you can feel anything there. And the last area is the top of our head. See if you can feel anything at the very top of your head. And now the harder one is we're going to try to scan our whole body. So just from your head, kind of feel some kind of energy throughout your whole torso, into your arms, and throughout your legs, into your feet, into your hands. And this is difficult, but just try. And essentially, if you just kind of focus on your whole body, it should almost feel like maybe you're glowing a little bit. And now the most difficult thing right now is if you can feel anything in your body, hold on to it. And then slowly, when you're ready, try to open your eyes. And you'll notice some of that sensation fades, and that's okay. Just try to come right back into it, into some of it. It's not going to feel as strong, and that's okay. But try to open your eyes and see if you can hold on to some kind of energy. And if you notice it fades in your body, that's okay. See if you can at least pull your energy back into your hands. And now you can notice if you pay attention, pull your energy back into your hands with your eyes open, you can still listen to me. You can still see me, but there's some energy in your hands or in your body. And what you'll realize is when you're in your body, when you're scanning your body's energy, you're not in your thoughts. And that's really important for us to understand, because sometimes our thoughts get out of control. We feel stressed, we feel anxious, and we don't know where else to go other than our thoughts. And then our thoughts will just keep going, and they'll fuel these emotional responses that create stress. The important thing is we learn how to interrupt that cycle and pull ourselves out of our thoughts into something right now. So this is what it means to be in some kind of inner energy awareness, like in your hands or in your body somewhere, and interacting with the world, interacting with each other, interacting with, as I do the dishes, as I take a shower. These are things that keep our mind and our body in a kind of rest phase. This is what it means to be present, okay? Because we're actually here. You're not listening to me thinking about things. You're not listening to me judging me. The judgment comes from our thoughts. That thought that like, oh, I don't like the way she looks. I don't like the way she's talking. That's thoughts, right? How do you pull yourself out of it while you interact with me? And this is one technique we can use to kind of pull ourselves out of our thoughts. Whoa, I'm in my thoughts. I'm not present. Okay, let me pull myself into my hands, into my heart, into something as I interact. And these are how we can have deeper interactions with people, especially people we love, like, your family, your children, your friends, whatever, how we can be more present, even though we're washing dishes or I'm, taking a shower or whatever it is. It allows us to be here. Otherwise, a lot of times we'll notice if we're sitting by ourselves, all we're doing is we're just thinking about all the past stuff, all the future stuff. We're like creating scenarios for the future as if that's helpful. And it's usually 98% of our thoughts are pretty useless. And what you'll understand is when you're present and you're able to kind of ground into your body, you're still able to interact. I didn't need to mentally rehearse my conversation with you in advance, because I'm really present, and now I'm able to listen to you, and now I can respond from the knowledge that I have. And it also, when you're present, allows for almost like new insight to come through you. It's not just like our old conditioned thoughts and patterns that keep coming up, and this is how like we can allow ourselves to change our behaviors. Like most of us, unless we're enlightened, could probably be a little bit more present, unless we're all like, most of us are not the Dalai Lama, so we're not all always calm, always present, always able to deal with whatever it is calmly. And this is important because even if someone is yelling at me or telling me things that are mean, I can ground into myself to be like, whew, here I am. I don't need to get caught up in this thought race that's happening. Let me ground. And when you're really present and you really learn how to be present, well, then it's like you start to respond from a different place. You're not responding from my old conditioning of like how I used to interact with you and what I used to say, and I'm getting defensive based on my old thought patterns and what I think of you. You know, now I'm able to just change my response and stay a little bit more calm and centered, which I think almost all of us want to do, especially with people we really care about, right? So these are the things that also like keep our nervous system regulated, right? They keep our nervous system calm, and we're relaxed and we're present and we're not in our thoughts, because our thoughts create anxiety. Our thoughts create these like emotional things that are happening in our body. And we'll notice, like a lot of us notice that when we're stressed, we also kind of feel kind of like this kind of energy buildup, this kind of tension throughout our body, right? And if you haven't noticed that, pay attention. Like next time something irritates you, next time something bothers you, you'll notice your thoughts are going off and creating all these scenarios. But just kind of scan your body just like we just did and just be like, wait, where do I feel this in my body? And you'll notice usually there's like this buildup of energy, maybe here, or maybe in your throat or somewhere in your body. Like a lot of people, when they feel nervous, they're like, oh, I have this pit in my stomach, or I feel this like irritation here. And that's important because how that helps you deal with stress is you can, when you feel like this tension in your heart center, for example, when someone's saying something to you or something happened and you're getting frazzled, what you can do is just kind of watch the energy build up in your body. And now when you watch it, just watching it itself, watching the energy buildup objectifies it and creates a distance between you and this emotional buildup that's happening. And that's important because if we can watch this buildup and objectify it, now you'll notice it just kind of calms down. And that keeps us, even when like something that in theory might bother us, like someone cuts us off in traffic or someone like cuts in front of us in the line. And sometimes we'll feel like, oh, like what the heck? Like that's so annoying or blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, it happened. So how do I not get anxious about it? Okay, let me just watch. Okay, let me just watch myself. And okay, it's just this energy buildup. Let me just watch it and let me calm back down. And then you'll notice your whole system just kind of calms down. So these things are important. One thing that's helpful is like a lot of times there's all these like yoga breathing techniques, right? And a lot of us, some of us know them, some of us don't. But the reason yoga breathing techniques are helpful is because essentially research now shows how different breathing techniques can be used to help regulate our nervous system. So essentially we can use breath work. So sometimes like, you know, I like sometimes like think of when you're driving or you're in the car and someone cuts you off, right? Really quickly, and you have to slam on the brakes. You'll notice even when the car keeps driving, you're driving, okay, everyone's safe, there's nothing happening, but your whole system is still kind of like your heart's still racing, you're still anxious, you're still like kind of shaky and nervous because you were scared, right? Like, but you'll notice even when the threat is gone, for several minutes, you're still kind of like anxious and shaky. Well, it's like, what do? It's like, I know I'm anxious, I know I don't need to be, but I am, so what do? So this is where breath work can be helpful because there are certain breathing techniques that help calm down our nervous system. Well, these breathing techniques are great to do for those high stress situations, like when someone cuts us off in traffic, but they're also great to do just during the day. Like because essentially what happens is when we start to feel nervous or anxious, our breathing gets more shallow. You'll notice that you're like, oh, I'm barely breathing right now. So if we can change our breathing, it allows our nervous system to calm down. Like different breathing techniques activate what's called our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our nervous system that allows us to rest and relax. So when we're anxious, that activates our sympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our nervous system that puts us in that fight or flight, like anxious, or dissociative pattern. So how do we take ourselves out of it? Well, breath work is the easiest way. It's the one thing we can use to control ourselves to once we realize we're anxious or once we realize we're stressed, we can, oh, I'm feeling stressed. Okay, let me do some of these breathing techniques to calm me down. Like, let me first watch in my body what's happening. Okay, I feel this tension here. Now what do I do? Okay, now let me do some breathing techniques to bring my system down. And then you'll notice, okay, now the stress is is better because now I'm not revved up. And now it's like, okay, so now that I'm calm, okay, now what do I need to do to deal with this situation? Okay, like now, you know, this person's yelling at me, my boss is yelling at me, but okay, and I'm getting worked up. Let me calm my system down. And now from a calm place, let me address it. From a calm place, oh, someone just gave me 3 more tasks I need to do. I didn't have time to do the one task I already had to do. What do I do? It's like, okay, when you catch yourself feeling anxious about what needs to happen, calm yourself down. And from that calm place, we can figure out, okay, now I need to figure out, what do I actually need to do? What are the steps that I need to do? Because it's just steps, not having 2 more things to do doesn't need to validate the anxiety happening within us. So the easiest breath technique that quickly helps bring us into like a calm response is like that instance where someone cuts you off in traffic and you feel like, whoo, I'm like really kind of shaky and anxious. The quickest way is a technique where you, let's do it together. You just want to breathe in, and ideally our breath, we should always be breathing in our belly. So whenever you breathe, your belly should get big. And then when you relax, your belly should get smaller, okay? So inhaling should be your stomach getting big, and then relaxing should be exhaling should be your stomach relaxing. And just if you're not quite sure, because a lot of people that are anxious, we tend to chest breathe. We breathe this way, okay? This is a secondary way of breathing. And when we breathe this way, one, it's, as a physical therapist, it's bad for your neck. It'll keep your neck and everything really tight and irritated because you're using these muscles all day to breathe. But it also forces us to take more shallow breaths, and shallow breathing is what triggers our sympathetic nervous system, which is what keeps us stressed. So when throughout the day, as much as you can, if you catch yourself kind of breathing this way, then just relax your shoulders, relax your belly, and try to bring your breath back down here. And you'll notice you take a deeper breath, a more full breath, but also it allows that parasympathetic system, that calm, rest, recover system, which is where we should be living most of our day. It allows that to activate. So the quickest way is to take a deep breath. So really try to relax your stomach, because you want to breathe into your stomach. You want to breathe in, take a deep breath. And then from there, force in a little bit more air and then sigh it out. And it's not just an exhale, you have to sigh it. And that's why sighing is relaxing. Our body has already figured out that sighing helps calm our nervous system down, but we can intentionally do it. So let's try it one more time. So you want to breathe in to your stomach, suck in a little bit more into your nose, and then exhale. And that's the quickest way to bring your nervous system down, to kind of bring it into this kind of rest phase. So like when you feel really anxious, or you're like on the verge of a panic attack or anxiety attack or asthma attack, all those things are all triggered by shallow breathing. Shallow breathing is what allows that panic attack, asthma attack, anxiety attack, all of those things to kick in. So if you catch yourself kind of on that, like heading towards that place, do some of these breaths to bring your nervous system down, to like bring us into a more calm place. One thing that Navy SEALs use is something called box breathing. So Navy SEALs, like in the Navy, there's this elite group of soldiers called Navy SEALs, and they're the ones that are the smartest, the strongest, the quickest, and they're able to function under high risk, high stress situations. And the most important thing that we remember is that to be efficient with things in a high stress situation, we need to be calm, right? So sometimes we validate our stress by saying, well, I have so many things to do, therefore I need to be stressed. And it's like, that feeling of like, when you're stressed, you're not going to do things as well as if you are calm doing the same thing. When you're stressed, you fumble more, you drop things more, you trip and you're dropping things, or you're messing up on your work. So it's always important, no matter how many things we have to do, we're doing them from a calm, centered place. Okay, so that's one thing, because it's important that we don't normalize our stress as, well, I have a lot to do, therefore I have to be stressed. It's like, well, you can be if you want to be, you know, but you don't have to be stressed if you don't want to be either. You know, you can just calm yourself down and now do your 10 tasks that you have to do, you know, instead of being, I have 10 tasks to do, I need to hurry up and do them. Like, that's fine too, if you want to, but you don't have to. You know, they can just be tasks you have to do. But one thing that they teach the Navy SEALs is something called box breathing. So when you start to notice, maybe you don't notice, maybe you'll notice your breath is a little shallow, or you're feeling a little bit stressed. It's not a high level stress, but you're feeling a little bit anxious. Try box breathing. So box breathing is when we inhale. So whenever we breathe, as much as you can, you always want to breathe through your nose. Nasal breathing is key, okay? A lot of times people mouth breathe, and there's all sorts of research of how mouth breathing is not good for us. It leads to sleep apnea, especially at night, sleep apnea, snoring. People have difficulty sleeping, dehydration. There's all sorts of systematic things that happen from mouth breathing. So as much as you can, if you catch your mouth open, close your mouth and try to breathe through your nose. So if you're congested or people with sinus issues, it's important that, like, if you notice it's difficult for you to breathe through your nose, start doing like sinus rinses, like the neti pot or some kind of sinus rinse. I do one every morning. And when the seasons change, allergies tend to be worse. You may have to do it several times a day, like maybe, you know, sometimes morning, sometimes evening, maybe also midday. But it's very important we keep our sinuses open, because otherwise it's difficult to nasal breathe, right? So box breathing is essentially breathing in. So we want to inhale. Remember, always breathe into your belly. You want to breathe, inhale for 4 seconds. So let's try. So let's inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4. And hold it for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4. So essentially you're inhaling for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, hold it for 4. So that's called box breathing. And you want to try that pattern maybe 2 or 3 times, you know, just to kind of regulate your nervous system. Because what will happen is when you're breathing like that, it'll kind of keep you in a relatively calm place, because now you're breathing, you know, you're breathing like deeper into your lungs. So that's a good thing we can do throughout the day. Really feel like I'm a little more anxious than just a little bit anxious, and this box breathing isn't quite enough, then you can try to extend it. So essentially you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 6 seconds. And then you can hold it for 2 seconds. Usually you split that last chunk up, you know, where you exhale for 6 seconds and hold it for 2. And then, so you can try that. That longer exhale is what helps calm our nervous system down. So that's important to do as well. And I think my time is running short now. I have all sorts of other techniques, but that's fine. But just those 2 are great to start with, right? Like, just practice it, because the important thing is, you know, that we are aware of what's happening in our body and we're trying things to change it. Like, we have to, one, recognize that we're in a stress response, and then from there figure out, okay, where is it in my body that I feel it? Okay, I feel it here. Let me watch it. And then, okay, I'm watching it. It's still not going away. I'm still feeling stressed. Let me try deepening my breaths. Maybe I'll try box breathing, or maybe I'll try that inhale, quick inhale, sigh, exhale, to regulate my system down. And then, as much as you can, the ideal breath for all of us is a 5.5 second inhale and a 5.5 second exhale. That's how we should be breathing normally. So just take some of those. These breathing techniques are fine. The one where you sigh is one that's better to do when you're alone or around people you're comfortable with. It's probably not, I don't recommend doing it on a Zoom meeting with your coworkers, unless it's this Zoom meeting. But the other ones, nobody has to know you're doing it. Nobody has to know you're box breathing. Nobody has to know you're taking longer exhales, or that you're doing a 5.5 second inhale, 5.5 second exhale. Nobody has to know you're doing that. When, like, if someone's kind of in your ear yapping at you and you feel yourself getting anxious, focus on your breathing. or focus on the energy in your hands or somewhere in your body, and then focus on your breathing. And that will allow you to get out of the mind reaction that's happening. And now someone can yell at me all day, but it's like, all right, but I'm not getting stressed out. I'm just looking at you like you look like you got some problems. That's got nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? So then I can just look at you like, okay, well, looks like you got some problems. Anyways, I'm gonna go. And I didn't get stressed out about it, right? Just someone else being stressed out doesn't have to mean I have to get stressed out as a result. Some of the questions, some of you wrote questions, and a lot of them had to do with managing stress. But I think the most important thing we understand is, how do you know your body is in a stress response, first of all? How do you know you're stressed out? Because usually the way that we'll know is if you pay, how do I know I'm stressed? Is we don't pay attention to what's happening in our body. What you'll notice if you start paying attention is, pay attention next time you feel stressed. How do I know I'm stressed out? What you'll notice is there's some kind of energy buildup that's happening in our body where we feel a little anxious. So that's the first thing to realize. Start recognizing these energy buildups that are happening in your body. And once you notice it, you can watch it. And there's all sorts of things that help release that. Sometimes just watching it itself allows that energy to lift. Or you can watch it and go for a walk, or go for a run, or do some yoga, or sing, or there's all sorts of things that help kind of move that energy, if we feel a little anxious, right? So it's like, how do I move it? Breath work is the simplest one. Just use some of these breathing techniques and you'll feel things kind of calm down. And maybe we can talk about some more, that's called somatic release, in case you're ever wondering, because essentially that buildup of tension is somatic pain, is usually what people call it, somatic issues, somatic pains going on. So it's important that we, one, recognize when we're in a stress response. And then we can figure out, okay, now what do I do about this? Now let me focus on my breathing, whatever. Because a lot of us, we're kind of living in this we kind of wake up anxious and we kind of have the whole day we're anxious. So it's just kind of recognizing the patterns is the first place we go. Some of the questions that I have, if I can read them out right now. One is it okay to multitask? At work, how can we calm ourselves when we have too much pressure? Yeah, multitasking is questionable, right? Most of us don't actually multitask. We're just doing one task, thinking about every other task we also should be doing. Okay, really, we're only unitaskers. We should only be doing one thing at a time. We're focused on one thing, let me do it from a calm place efficiently. And now, okay, I did that for 5 minutes, now let me do this other thing. Let me calm myself down, be present, and do this other thing. So this idea of multitasking, I think, justifies the stress that's going on in our head. In reality, most of us are not actually multitasking. We're compartmentalized. We're doing one thing really quickly. Now I'm doing this other thing really quickly. So if we think of it like that, and if we find ourselves feeling nervous about it, calm yourself, use some of these techniques to regulate your system, get out of that, I got 3 more things I need to do in 5 minutes. Get out of that response if you can. And now let me do those next 3 tasks in the next 5 minutes, from a more centered place. And then the output, the work that you put in, the quality of the thing you do is actually much better than if you were doing it from this anxious place, right? So that's important that we understand. One question is, how can we identify underlying stress before it affects the body in a visible way? I think the stress doesn't happen before it affects the body. It's affecting the body first, and then it's creating this thought pattern that's happening. And the longer that pattern is going on within our system, the more it starts actually putting strain on our internal organs. Because now there's not good blood flow happening through our body. When we breathe efficiently and we breathe deeply, our heart is able to pump blood efficiently. Our lungs are exchanging oxygen efficiently to get to our cells. So our body is working optimally. But when we're taking these shallow breaths and we're anxious for most of the day, that's when things start to break down within our system. You know, that's when we start developing. And these are the common causes of things like inflammatory diseases, chronic diseases. A lot of these things stem from, you know, just these kind of low-grade things building up. The number one indicator of longevity is lung capacity. More than diet, more than exercise, is lung capacity. Do you have the capacity to breathe and exhale and hold your breath efficiently? Like, that's what studies have shown, that lung capacity is a stronger indicator of our longevity than anything else. So essentially what that boils down to is like, how calm are you? How stressed are you? These things play a role in our long-term, you know, prognosis. So for that reason alone, it's important that we kind of regulate our system. Does balanced diet play a role in staying calm? Absolutely. You know, when we're eating trash, we feel like trash. We all know that. You're not going to eat McDonald's and the next day you're like, I feel great. Let's go for a run. Never, says anybody. So just, I mean, you know that answer. Like, the healthier we eat, the more, you know, studies show, like, you know, eating lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, eating a variety of colors along the spectrum, lots of nuts, don't eat processed foods, don't eat sugars. Those things are all inflammatory, you know? So we need to remember that and just be mindful. Yeah, can you indulge here and there? Sure, do whatever you want. But, you know, the more sugars and things that we put into our body, the more it's toxic to us. So we have to start looking at food as medicine. Like, any food we eat affects how our body functions. You know, our body is the things that we eat are what provide the nutrition to our cells, right? So if our cells are getting trash food, your cells are gonna feel like trash too. You know, how are you gonna heal things when you're eating a bunch of, you know that answer. Managing multitasking with a stressful mind. I mean, that we already talked about. Just, you know, get out of the stress response, and now you can do the multiple tasks you have to do. When stress comes, all the theories we have learned become impractical. How can we teach kids to handle stress? I think that question implies that stress is normal. And I think we need to start changing that narrative of understanding that we can have a busy day and not be stressed. And because when we're stressed, yeah, you can't function efficiently. But maybe like learning more practical techniques might help us take us out of that. How can we teach our kids to handle stress? The most important thing I think we teach children, we have to teach by example. When we know how to manage stress and calm ourselves, and we're not reacting to them from an anxious, stressful place, they absorb that. Children are sponges. They're not, more than they listen to your words, they're absorbing your energy. And you all know that feeling of like when you're with like a toddler, like a 2-year-old, and you're in a state of anger or rage, even if you don't say anything, they'll just start crying. You know, they'll just start bursting out crying, and they're just like, ah, and you're like, I didn't even say anything. Because they're responding to your energy, right? They feel your, and then they just start crying, right? Because they're just like, no. But we have to understand, like, this is how your children are always interacting with you. They're interacting with your energy first, and then your words, right? So they're looking at how you respond to things, and then your words. They're looking at, you know, and we're like that with each other too. We underestimate how much we're not, like when someone walks into the room really angry and they haven't said anything, we know that feeling of like we start feeling ourselves get like kind of defensive. So it's just important that we start like really being aware of our own energy and then interacting with people. Like, the words we're saying are less important than what's the energy we're entering the space with. So I think that's what I would worry about before we actually teach kids practical things. Instead of following the rules, like, let's start embodying the rules first, and then if there's something to teach the kids, we can go there another time. but my time is definitely up. I don't know if you want
But this, I think this, yeah, Reena, thank you so much. This session was really, really great. I'm pretty sure everybody echoes with me. I've learned, even though even though this might be a small thing, might have heard it many times, but I think actually practicing it I can see, like, at least personally, I feel it'll definitely benefit, and just taking that few minutes should make the difference. At least baby steps. Let's put it that way.
I think it's important that we just find little things we're incorporating during the day, because sometimes we think like, oh, I'm supposed to be meditating. It's like, yeah, you can meditate for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour in the morning. But if the rest of the day you're stressed out, well, I mean, it's better than nothing that you did that 10 minutes, you know. But also, like, are there little things we can do during our day to keep ourselves more mindful? That meditation practice is to help you live the rest of your day in a more calm space. You're just practicing how to focus your mind, right? So I start my meditation practice by scanning my inner energy first, and then I'll go into a meditation. But also that energy thing, practice it like at night. Like if you have difficulty sleeping, just scan your energy, your whole body energy, like we did at the beginning, and just kind of hang out like that. And that will pull you out of your thoughts. It's a great way to go to sleep, like kind of recharging your body. And it's a great way to wake up. When you wake up, scan your body before you get out of bed. Otherwise, your eyes will open and you'll just start thinking, kind of get back into your body, be a little more present, and then put your feet on the ground. You know what I mean? All right. That's all I got to say.
All day. Anybody any questions for Reena? Does anybody have any questions? I know we are we have another one of our speakers also, so maybe we can take a couple of minutes if anybody has questions. If not, Reena, please, if you can share your information on, I know that you told us about your classes, in-person classes, and other details. We can then share it with us. We can, definitely share it with our wonderful team of ladies. And
okay, in the chat, I'll put my website.
Okay.
And on there, if you scroll to the bottom, there's a little area you can subscribe. Just put your email address. Okay. And then sometimes I do little talks, or I don't do this all the time. I just started kind of posting these informally. Okay. So, if you're ever interested in like joining, come on.
Okay. All right. And I don't know, I think most of the team here knows you, but at least from my perspective, I know that I just wanted to also tell everyone that this is Gopi Uncle's smaller daughter. I think it was news to me. I'm very new to the KCS family. So really, really good to meet you. And thank you so much for this enlightened session.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Reena. I'm sorry. Yeah. Hi, I'm Kirti, by the way. Hi. Thank you. That was amazing. I had a quick question. So do you have regular classes or?
Not really. I mean, I've done some seminars, just informally. It's kind of based on interest. If people are interested, I'm happy to host things. I've done more in-depth kind of energy awareness techniques, kind of talking a little more in depth about like, somatic issues. All the places that we scanned are essentially your chakras. So if you ever want to practice it again, you can just Google chakras, find an image of the body, and those are the spots we went through, so that way you can practice it at home. And I've had more on seminars on breathing and stuff too. So if anybody's interested, just send me a message. Like on my website, there's ways you can message me. Just let me know if there's interest. I'll host them again. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Hey Reena, this is Shruti. How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Yeah. So Kirti was asking about something, because I know I mentioned her about how you have this pop-up classes sometimes, and I told her like you might have that and we can go one day. So that's what we were wondering too.
Oh, okay.
Is that something that you would post on your? Yeah.
Yeah, I will. If you subscribe, then yeah, I'll just send you an email, like when I have post another one, and just come on over. They're usually just like an hour long, just like not super long. People have busy lives, so.
Right. Any other questions, ladies? All right. Okay. I think.
So actually, I have one question,
Oh
Reena.
yes, Manju. Yes, go ahead.
Reena, so you talked about all this today, which is amazing, and much more than that, you are very good at physical therapy, which and I was hoping to hear more because most of these women, they work, they're sitting in front of the computer, right? So would you be interested in doing something, for those who sit in front of the computer for a long time, about the neck pain, all that's what I was thinking that we were going to talk about today, because you're extremely good at those.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely do a seminar on that. I wasn't, that's what I was going to talk about. And then we started
This
chatting.
is amazing, though. Of course, this is amazing. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Like that's most of my patients now are my patients because of COVID, and people have just been at their bad posture for about a year. So
Yep.
there's all sorts of stuff that yeah, maybe we can do a pop-up
in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Manju. We'll make a note of that. All right.
Right. Well, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Reena. So I think, yeah.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you. Yeah.
Kirti Tamburan. She's going to be our next guest speaker today. Kirti Tamburan, she's my friend, and as her name denotes, she has her roots from the Cochin Palace. She grew up in the Middle East and graduated from Australia. She then specialized in molecular biology and biotechnology. She also worked as a research assistant researching thalassemia, a genetic disorder. In the US, she worked at Cedar Sinai Medical Center, LA, in the genetic counseling department. Kirti took her second master's in education from Johns Hopkins University, currently working as, sorry for the distraction, currently working as biology teacher at Marriottsridge High School, Maryland. Thank you, Kirti, for joining us this afternoon.
Let me put you guys in gallery first. All right. Thank you, everyone. Brinda, thanks for having me. When she contacted me first, I had no idea what to speak on. I still don't have any idea what to speak on. So if any of you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to take it. But like Brinda said, I work in the Howard County Public School System, and things are different between different school systems, like Montgomery school system or Virginia school systems. There are differences in the way we do the courses. So if you have any specific questions, I'll happily answer them. I can go over some of the questions that Brinda shared with me. But other than that, this is a great school system to be in. So I don't know if you want to go that route, or I can just go ahead and answer some of the questions that I already have.
I think we can start there. Maybe Kirti, let's start. If you can start with those questions. Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Start with the questions. Awesome. Yeah, let me just pull that up. Yeah, so I think one of the first questions was about preschool. Once again, Yan, I'm a high school teacher. So, sometimes I know a lot about secondary school system, not too much about elementary school system. But if you want to go into preschool, at least in the Howard County public school system, I think the child has to be 4 years old by September 1st. Of that particular academic year. And so that's when, you're eligible to get into the preschool system. Not all elementary schools in Howard County has a preschool option. There are only some schools, but my understanding is that if you apply, you can possibly get into any one of those schools, depending upon the availability.
And age limit, like I said, I think you have to be 4 years old by September 1st of that academic year. Any questions? Anyone had any questions about preschool other than that? Okay.
Preschool selection, is there any selection process or?
I think
anything you can-
I think it's mostly first come first serve basis, because not all schools offer the preschool option. So it depends on, you know, the applications they get, and they look at the eligibility of the students, you know, that has put in for the application, and then I think it's based on that more than anything else. And then once you have been approved, then you have to go through the process of making sure you have all your immunizations before they let the student get into the preschool.
Thank you.
Yep. So I think one of the other questions that I had was, do the schools have programs for special need kids? That is a resounding yes. Every school, elementary, middle, or high school, have special needs options. We are legally required to provide special need services to students who need it. So if there's anyone who wants to ask me more specific questions about special needs, I'll be happy to answer it. But, you know, special needs are a big, huge, it's a big umbrella term. And we have lots and lots of special needs students. And what we think of special needs may not be really, you know, may not be what special needs means in schools. It can go from anywhere with, you know, very mild, you know, like ADD or ADHD, like attention deficit disorder, or autism, you know, students with, you know, being on the autistic spectrum. So like this year, I have 23 special needs students on my roster. So, you know, if you have any specific questions with special needs services, I'll be more than happy to answer. But the quick answer to that particular question is yes. Every school has special needs services provided, and that includes preschool. And I'm talking about the public school system. The private schools, I'm not very sure about the private schools. They do, because they do have to provide some amount. Legally, they're required to, but may not be as extensive as what public schools provide. So if anyone has any questions about special needs, I'll be happy to answer them specific questions. If not, we can move on to the next one.
Ladies, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. If not, you can always reach out.
Yeah, or put it in the chat as well.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so one of the next questions, which is a very important question, and which is a question that I feel very strongly about, personally about, is time management taking AP classes. So I teach AP biology, so I have, you know, 60 students in total taking AP bio. And have been teaching AP Bio for the last how many ever years. So I would say one of the key things about taking AP classes is look into how many AP classes you're taking, first of all. I think our kids make the mistake, I mean, because, you know, it's peer pressure, it's pressure from parents, it's cultural pressure, whatever it is. A lot of our students end up taking like 5 or 6 AP classes, which is from a teacher's perspective, ridiculous, because AP classes are college level classes. And the rigor and the expectations are so high. And there's a lot of coursework that the students are expected to do on their own. Everything cannot be taught in a 15-minute period in our classes. So I always tell my students, take AP only in those courses that you are absolutely interested in, or that you're semi-interested in and you want to try and explore it a little bit. That's fine. But do not take 5 and 6 AP courses just because you have friends taking it, and just because, you know, they feel that they are smart by taking 5 or 6 AP courses. So, you know, I actually have to go back and piggyback on what Reena said, a lot of what Reena said. When we don't give that counsel to our students, to our children, we are really not teaching them how to deal with stress in life. You know, we have to ask ourselves, what's the point? If you have a child who is interested in going into medicine, by all means, take AP chemistry, take AP biology. Those are fantastic. You don't need to take AP literature. You don't need to take AP world history. You know, there is this misconception that the more AP courses you take, colleges are going to be happy about it. No, colleges are very good at weeding out all this. They know exactly the mindset of the students and the mindset of the, you know, culturally, the mindset that a lot of these kids are taking the AP classes because they think that's what they should do. So I would rather a student take 1 or 2 AP classes and try and get like an A or B in it, as opposed to taking 5 AP classes and getting D's and E's, or ending in a position where their mental health is, you know, truly at stake. You know, how many of us here we are sitting, we don't know how to handle stress. How do we expect a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, or a 16-year-old to deal with that much course load and get A's? You have to ask yourselves that, you know. And one of the other things I tell my students is put your phones away. You know, and that again comes back to one of the things that Reena said about multitasking, right? I have a lot of students, when I give them independent work in my class, they ask me, Ms. Thampuran, can we listen to music? And my answer to that always is no, you cannot, because if you are learning a content for the first time and you're listening to music, now your brain is, the attention of your brain is split between 2 tasks. And when you are listening to music, you are thinking about the lyrics. You're probably thinking about the video behind those lyrics. And you're trying to, you know, learn about photosynthesis. It's not going to happen. But if it's something that you have already learned and you are doing just practice, then that's different. You know, oftentimes kids come up to me and say, you know, that's how we focus. No, then learn another technique to focus. And that's again coming back to what Reena said. Like, I do a lot of breathing techniques. Oh my gosh, I do these deep breathings all throughout my day. That's the only way I can deal with 150 students. Some of them are obnoxious and make me go crazy. Okay, so that's the only way I deal with it. Those are the kind of things that we have to be teaching. Okay, you need to focus, then do some deep breaths. You cannot focus with music playing in the background or watching TV and trying to learn something or trying to do something for the first time. So I don't know if that answers your questions. One of the things about also AP classes is that, you know, if you need to get college credit for it, you have to do really well on the exam, and you should get 3 and above to get credits for that particular course. But on the flip side, I tell my students, especially my kids who come into my AP bio classes, most of them are kids who want to go into the health professional field. And I tell them, if you are going to be a doctor, if you're thinking about being a doctor, you should go to college and take biology anyways. That's not something that you should be skipping on. You know, so I cannot stress on the importance of mental health. And that's where I also urge our parents, especially we, coming from a different culture, what are the pressures we put on our children? So, how many times I cannot, as a teacher, I see, and sometimes I have to be the parent to some of these kids because they break down. They get a B. B is not a bad grade, especially in an AP class. B is not a bad grade, and they get a B and they break down. And, and then I have to pull them aside and I have to talk to them. And they say, my parents are going to be mad. They're going to take away my Instagram. They're not going to let me go for, whatever. I have done that myself to my son, and I had to stop and reflect and think about what are some of the pressures we as parents are putting on our children. So, that's not a good place for a child to be in. So things for us to think about as well. I don't know. I think I went completely off topic, but.
But I think it's a very valid point, Kirti. We forget that sometimes. So thank you for reminding. We do have a question in the chat. How does the National Merit Scholarship work? What is the process?
I'm not sure about the National Merit. Asha, can you talk to me a little bit more about the National Merit Scholarship? I mean, I do know about a couple of things, but I'm not sure if we are on the same page.
That's okay, Kirti. I was just curious. It was, regarding PSAT and it was confusing, like what it is.
The PSATs or the scholarship in itself?
Yeah, it said the PSAT ends up into national merit semi-finalist and then a finalist, and it was pretty confusing for somebody who has no idea. At least a parent who has no idea.
Oh, it's pretty confusing for even in the education system because there's just so much out there. We ourselves have to look it up a lot of times, research, there's so many scholarships out there. So it's pretty confusing for us as well. But just from what you said, we just had our PSATs on Wednesday. And just from what you said, I think that's a way the College Board scopes out potential students, depending upon what your grades are. PSATs, it's obviously a practice SAT. So they use, I know that, so I don't know if National Merit Scholarship does the same. I do know that there are a lot of scholarships. They scope out students based on their PSAT score, whether this child has a potential, to be academically at such a high level that they can offer that child some kind of scholarship. So probably on the same lines.
Yeah, thank you, Kirti. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, let me see what else we had with questions. So one of the other questions we had is, what is the significance of SOLs administered at schools? So I'm thinking what the question meant was SLO, not SOL. Or maybe in different counties or different states, it's called SOL. I don't know, but in Howard County, we call it the SLO, which is Student Learning Objectives. That necessarily doesn't have anything to do with students. That has to do with teachers. So basically what we have to do is we have to take a particular skill and we have to record the growth of students on that particular skill. So for example, I just had my SLO meeting with my principal last week. So the skill that I picked was data analysis. So what I do is I give a baseline data analysis assignment to my students, and then I grade them. And SLOs doesn't necessarily have to be part of their actual grade. but we use a rubric and we kind of grade them where they are at that particular skill. And then we track them in the sense we provide them with learning opportunities, we scaffold the content, and then we track their growth. And the idea is by the end of the academic year, all these students have mastered that particular skill set. And the skills that we pick are usually skills that kids are assessed on in state assessments. So when you think about the science state assessment that they have to sit in Maryland, we call it the MESA, the Maryland Integrated Science Assessment. Data analysis is one of the very important skills that students are going to be assessed on. So that's typically what an SLO is. It's more for how effective is the teacher in making sure that his or her students have mastered that particular skill. So I don't know if anyone had any other questions on that.
In the Virginia side, we do have that as it's called the SOL. I don't know, maybe it's the same thing.
It's probably the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's usually mostly for the teachers to gauge where the students are from the start of the academic year and the end of the academic year, and every teacher has to do it. So we pretty much pick a class and then we track where our kids are at the beginning. They're pretty bad at the beginning. And then by the end of the academic year, where are they? So we give them lots of opportunities to, work on that particular skill set. Okay, so another question I think I have here is need to know about the basic idea on honors course. So that is an interesting question because every subject area is different. So I can speak for science. I'm not very sure about the other subject areas. Like I know English has honors. I know social studies has honors, but in science in Howard County, we have taken out honors. What we have is like a GT track, and then we have an on-grade track. Honors students, I would say honors students kind of fall between GT and on-grade, but once they remove the honors, all the honors students have also gone into the GT track. So the GT track is the GT classes can also be very, very varied. We have students who are, true GT, and then we have students who have quite a way to go before they can get to that level. So typically honors are a step above from our on-grade classes. Right, so that was about honors. And then I think one other, which again, a very important question, how important is it to get good credits in college admission? So I'm thinking you're talking about GPA. I think that's what that question meant. Is it really important to have a good GPA? Yes and no. Let me put it that way. If you have a terrible GPA, probably not a good idea. But at the same time, again, and I think that's the reason why our students pressure themselves into taking these 5 and 6 AP classes, thinking that that's going to look excellent on their college admission or college resume. GPA is important, but colleges typically tend to look at how all-rounded you are as a student. So if you are a student who has done nothing else and have just done academics, even though you have an excellent GPA, probably that student is not that great a candidate as opposed to someone who's done multiple things and have shown qualities like leadership qualities and commitment to the community and stuff like that, and have a slightly lower GPA. So what they want to see, what colleges typically want to see is how good of a college student are you going to be? And that's not always dependent on excellent GPA, if that makes sense. Okay. And I think that was it. Oh, there was one question about world language. Can we study world language outside the school and appear for the exam? I actually don't have an answer to that. And I tried looking it up. I mean, we have lots of world languages that we offer in Howard County Public School System. But that's something that I am not really sure about. So I have jotted it down. So what I'll do is I can ask our world language teachers at my school, and they'll probably have more information. And then I can maybe pass on that information to Brinda and Viju, and maybe you guys can then, you know, share it with whoever's on this particular meeting. Yeah, so so that's pretty much all the questions I had. I don't know if anyone else had any other questions. I would say, to close it off, if no one else has any other questions, take care of the children. Okay, I know we all do, but sometimes we need to change our mindset, the way we look at our children, because as a parent, we look at only our kids. And as a teacher, I go through, you know, 150 plus students every year. I have to deal with children who ends up in hospitals because of suicidal ideations. Not a good place to be. We don't realize the kind of pressure we put on our children. You know, if our child is failing, most of the time they don't do that on purpose. They're struggling. They're really struggling. So when we punish our children for their struggles, that's not a good lesson. That's you know, that's making them feel even more worthless. So, you know, and a lot of the times, you know, when students have only successes, they don't learn much. It is through failures that we learn, right? So when your student comes home with a 2 out of 15 on a quiz, instead of taking away their Instagram or, you know, not allowing them to go out with their friends, what you should probably be doing is sitting with your child and asking, okay, let's sit together. Let's figure this out. What was the reason that you got a 2 out of 15? Is it that something you truly don't understand? Then let's figure out how to help you to get there. Taking something away from them is not going to achieve that, because when you take something away from a child, you're immediately blaming them, and you're going under the assumption that your child is doing that on purpose. There are cases when they do it on purpose, but most often they don't do it on purpose. It's because their struggle's real, right? You know, someone asks me to pick up 210 pounds and I can't do it. I can't even lift those weights off the ground. And then they punish me for that because I don't have the skill set to do that. That's going to make me feel pretty bad. So, you know, this is something that I see all the time, and my heart breaks when I see that. And something really hard for me to deal with, you know, because my students are my children for that 1 year that they're there with me. And it's, you know, I hope something that we can all keep in the back of our mind. That's it.
Thank you so much, Kirti. I was getting a little emotional when you were saying that. It's really, really the, you know, the way you put it, it really matters. You know, the way we have to also change our thought process as much as we can. Yeah,
and it's hard, you know. Namala, we come with our own cultural baggage.
Exactly. Yeah, we are. I think we are frozen in time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is really helpful.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kirti. Kirti, കഴിഞ്ഞ 2-3 ആഴ്ചയായിട്ട് നല്ല ബിസി ആയിരുന്നു with school homecoming, volunteering, and on top of that, college recommendation letters.
Still ongoing.
Yeah, she agreed to come and talk to us. Thank you so much, Kirti.
Thank you,
You're
Kirti.
welcome. My pleasure.
Any
Right.
questions regarding and the school thing or
No, I think doesn't look like yeah, if anybody has any questions, please feel free. You can unmute yourself, or if you have any feedback, that's also great. If anybody wants to any ideas for another, any good better topics, any different topics ladies want to recommend, we can try to get you that information. So please let us know.
Yes, Viju and Brenda, ഞാൻ ബിന്ദു സന്ദീപ് ഒരു കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞോട്ടെ.
Sure.
ഓക്കെ, രണ്ട് സ്പീച്ചും റീനയുടേതും കീർത്തിയുടേതും വളരെ യൂസ്ഫുൾ ആയിരുന്നു. പല കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചിലതൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ കേട്ടിട്ടുള്ളതാണെങ്കിലും വീണ്ടും അത് ഇത്രയും പ്രൊഫഷണൽ ആയിട്ട് ഒരാൾ പറയുമ്പോൾ നമുക്കത് വളരെ ടച്ചിങ് ആയിട്ടും വളരെ അത് യൂസ്ഫുള്ളും ആയിരിക്കും. രണ്ടുപേരെയും അപ്രിഷ്യേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നു. അത് ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു ടോക്ക് നമുക്ക് സംഘടിപ്പിച്ച വിമൻസ് ഫോറത്തിന്റെ ലീഡേഴ്സിനും അതുപോലെ എനിക്ക് അഭിനന്ദനങ്ങൾ. പിന്നെ ഒരു കാര്യം എനിക്ക് പറയാൻ തോന്നിയത്, ഇപ്പൊ കീർത്തി പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ നമ്മൾ പുട്ടിങ് പ്രഷർ ഓൺ അവർ കിഡ്സ്, അവർ ചിൽഡ്രൻ, അതില് പേരൻസിനെ കുറച്ചൊന്ന് ബോധവൽക്കരിക്കാനായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ടോക്ക്, എസ്പെഷ്യലി വെൻ യു ഹാവ് സ്മോൾ കിഡ്സ്, നൗ ദേ ഹാവ് ടൈം. ഒരു നെക്സ്റ്റ് 10 years ആ പേരൻസ്, ഞാനൊക്കെ ഇപ്പൊ കുറച്ച് പഠിച്ചു വന്നു, കുട്ടികൾ വലുതായതുകൊണ്ട് കുറെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ അവർ നമ്മളെ പഠിപ്പിച്ചു വന്നു. പക്ഷെ ഇഫ് യു ക്യാൻ ഡു 1 or 2 or a series of talks on those subjects and leaving stress out, റീന പറഞ്ഞതിന്റെ അത് രണ്ടും കൂടെ ചേർത്തോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ രണ്ടായിട്ടോ ആയിട്ട് ഫോക്കസിങ് ഓൺ യങ് പേരൻസ് ഹു ഹാവ് വെരി സ്മോൾ കിഡ്സ്, അവർക്ക് വളരെ ഹെൽപ്ഫുൾ ആയിരിക്കും. ഇതുപോലെയുള്ള പ്രൊഫഷണലി അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ആളുകളെ കൊണ്ടുള്ള ടോക്ക് സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചാൽ നമ്മളുടെ വിമൻസ് ഫോറത്തിലുള്ള പേരൻസിന്, ഗ്രാൻഡ് പേരൻസിനും ഒക്കെ യൂസ്ഫുൾ ആയിരിക്കും. അങ്ങനെ എനിക്കൊരു റിക്വസ്റ്റ് കൂടെ ഉണ്ട്, സമയം കിട്ടുവാണെങ്കിൽ സൗകര്യം വരുവാണെങ്കിൽ.
ഡെഫിനറ്റ്ലി അത് നല്ലൊരു ഫീഡ്ബാക്ക് ആണ്. ബിക്കോസ് ഇതാണ് ഇപ്പം ലൈക്ക് വൺ ഓഫ് ദ, I think intrinsically others it's happening, it's just that we don't realize it sometimes, അല്ലേ? അതാണ്
ഒരുപാട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പം പറഞ്ഞ കുട്ടികൾക്ക് സ്ട്രെസ് വന്നിട്ട് ഈവൻ ഹോസ്പിറ്റലൈസ്ഡ് ആകുന്നവര്, എസ്പെഷ്യലി ഇൻ ലാസ്റ്റ് കപ്പിൾ ഓഫ് ലൈക്ക് 1 or 2 years നമ്മളും പിള്ളേരും ഒരുപാട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഗോ ത്രൂ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്, നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഇപ്പൊ ഒരു റൈറ്റ് ടൈമും കൂടെ ആണെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു കുറച്ച് പേരൻസിനെ കൂടെ ബോധവൽക്കരിക്കാൻ, എസ്പെഷ്യലി ഏഷ്യൻ പേരൻസ് എന്നും കൂടെ പറയേണ്ടി വരും, ഇന്ത്യൻ പേരൻസ് എന്നും കൂടെ പറയേണ്ടി വരും. കുറച്ച് അനുഭവങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ടും കാണുന്നുണ്ടും അവർക്ക് വളരെ ഹെൽപ്ഫുൾ ആയിരിക്കും.
താങ്ക് യു ബിന്ദു.
ഷുവർ.
ഞാൻ സ്പോട്ട്ലൈറ്റ്
സ്പോട്ട്ലൈറ്റ് മാറ്റണോ?